Hi everyone, and welcome back to the NetCalculus. Today we are going to talk about dot product, mostly about geometric vectors and the properties of the dot product. But before we do that, let's go back and make sure that you go to the prerequisite knowledge, which is just beside the NetCalculus link. You click on this, and here you can go through the basic information about the vectors, what it is, and here is another website. You can click on it and go to the calculus 2. Here is all the basics about the vectors, which will help you to understand the main theme. So we're gonna start with geometric vectors, which is mainly just one main equation, which is a dot b equals to magnitude of vector A times magnitude of vector B times cos of the angle between of the two vectors, and which is tail to tail. Make sure it's tail to tail. For example, if this vector would be here, you wouldn't take this angle, you would move it to here and make it tail to tail. This formula can be rearranged to find the angle by taking the cos inverse of the a dot b over the magnitude of a times the magnitude of b, which is just the same formula, just rearranged. Also, there is 9 main properties we're going to talk about today, but if you want to learn all of them, you can go to Study Corner all the way down, and here is the dot product properties. You can scroll down and you can learn all of the 12. But today we're just going to learn these 9. First of all, remember that the a dot b is a scalar, which is a real number, and that is really important to understand the concept of the a dot b. Second, if vector A is perpendicular to vector B, a dot b is going to be equal to 0, which makes sense because the cross product of 90 is 0. That's why the a dot b is 0. Third, if a dot b is 0, there are only 3 options. First of all, magnitude of A might be equal to 0, or magnitude of B might be equal to 0, which makes sense. If you go to the main equation, if any of these 3 values is going to be equal to 0, all equation is going to be equal to 0. So that's why if a dot b is equal to 0, one of these 3 values should be equal to 0 as well. So 3 possibilities are magnitude of A is 0, magnitude of B is 0, or A perpendicular to the B. Fourth, if the angle is in between of the 0 and 90 degrees, then the cos is going to be bigger than 0, and which also means that the a dot b is going to be also bigger than 0. If angle is in between of the 90 and 180, the cos angle is going to be less than 0, and the dot product is going to be less than 0 as well. If you dot the vector by itself, the magnitude of it is going to be squared. Seventh, a dot b is just the same as b dot a, which makes sense because these are the real numbers, and if you multiply the real number and you switch it around, it's just going to be the same value. A dot b plus c in the bracket is going to be just the same as a dot b plus a dot c, which also makes sense because it's just a scalar, and it just multiply a dot b plus a dot c. You just substitute. And the last one is if you times it by the 0, it's just going to be equal to 0, and once again it's just a scalar. If you times the scalar by 0, it's just going to be a 0. Okay, here is some exercises we're going to go through to help you understand the theme. Determine the dot product of a dot b when known that magnitude of of A is 6 and magnitude of B is 7. An angle between them is 30. So we can bring in this formula, and as we see, we have all the values, and all we need is just to substitute. So we substitute, and what we get is vector A dot vector B is equals to 6 times 7 cos 30. I suggest you to make it the bracket if it's multiplying, because if you make it a dot, somebody might think it's a dot and not the multiplication. So you just make the brackets in between, so you know that's the multiplication. So next we're just gonna sub it in our calculator. 6 times 7 cos 30. And what we get is 21 root 3, and that's our answer. A dot B equals to 21 root 3. That was the easy one. Here is the second example. Determine the angle between two vectors A and B with magnitude 3 and 5 respectively, and dot product of 7. So if we look here, what we need to find is angle, and all we need to do is just to substitute these values in here. So as you can see, we're gonna do to find the angle, we're gonna find alpha. We take the cos inverse of 7 over 3 times 5. If we sub that in our calculator, then what we're going to see is angle of 62.18, but we can simplify it to 62.2. So alpha is equals to 62.2 degrees. Okay, here is the last question I'm going to talk about today. Example 3. It's given that the A dot B is equals to 10 and the angle between vectors is 60. Determine the magnitude of A and B if magnitude of B is 5 times greater than the magnitude of A. It looks really hard at first, because you might say we don't know any of the magnitudes, but it's not that true. If we take it, if we write it down here, the magnitude of, we can represent the magnitude of A as letter X, since we don't know it, but we know that the magnitude of B is 5 times greater, so it's just going to be 5x. If we substitute that into this formula, we can say that the magnitude that A times magnitude of A times magnitude of B is going to be equals to 5x squared, right? Later we can rearrange the formula to determine the x value. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna rearrange it, and we make it 5x squared equal to A dot B over cos of 60 which is given. And since we know that the a dot b is 10, we can just sub it in, and what we get is 5x squared is going to be equal to 7 over cos of 60. Oh, it's not 7, it's 10. And now it's just going to be equal to 20. So our equation is 5x squared equals to 20, which can be simplified to x equal to 2 or minus 2. But we know that magnitude can't be negative, so we just say that this one is incorrect. So now we know the magnitude of A, and we know that the magnitude of B is 5 times greater. So the magnitude of B, let's just say this one is the magnitude of A. Magnitude of vector A, and magnitude of vector B is going to be equals to 2 times 10, 2 times 5, which is just going to be equal to 10. And here are our answers. So the magnitude of x is going to be equal to, the magnitude of A is going to be equal to 2, and the magnitude of B is going to be equal to 10. That's all for today. Check out our next video, which is going to be on the dot product again, but only on the algebraic ways of using it, which might be more complex than that, but I hope you guys will handle that. Thanks for watching. Check out our next videos and all the videos on our website, and see you guys next time.